Federico Faggin once said, "It took me over 30 years to grasp a truth that still escapes even some of the world's most brilliant scientists. Reality, in its essence, is not physical. Quantum computers, those machines that defy everything we thought we knew, don't operate within space-time. Their true function happens beyond it. There exists a deeper layer of reality, one that's invisible to the eye, where thoughts arise, emotions take shape, and consciousness itself is born. At that level, information isn't just data. It holds purpose, it holds meaning. And from that subtle dimension, the world we believe we know is projected. Everything you see, touch, or feel comes from something far more vast. Yet, we've built a limited version of reality, one that relies solely on what our senses can detect. We've convinced ourselves that this is all there is. Perhaps we've mistaken the interface of perception for the source of existence itself, confusing what we experience with our senses for what actually is. But what you're about to hear may forever shift how you see your mind, your body, and your true place in the universe. Federico Faggin is not your average scientist. He didn't just contribute to technological evolution. He sparked it. He gave birth to the microprocessor, the tiny engine that ignited our digital age. But his most astonishing insight didn't come from the circuits. It came from what lies beyond them. While a computer operates on simple binary pulses, 0 or 1, the human body runs on a far more mysterious principle. Every cell among the trillions within you holds the entire blueprint of who you are. Each one is a living reflection of the whole. This isn't mechanics, it's holographic. In a holographic reality, each part reflects the whole, not partially, but fully. Your fingertip, your heart, your skin. Each holds the echo of your entire being, encoded in ways science is only beginning to glimpse. The human being is not a sum of parts. It is a totality expressed in countless forms. And it's not just that every cell holds information. It's that each one is connected to the whole through an invisible network of quantum fields. What we call the body is not an isolated physical system. It's a field of living intelligence, aware, adaptive, responsive. Quantum physics is beginning to confirm what ancient sages always suspected. Matter is not separate. Nothing is. Particles aren't things. They're temporary expressions of a deeper field. Like waves arising from a single ocean, we are distinct forms of the same source. So the real question isn't what are we, but rather what field is dreaming us and why. Perhaps we're not simply organisms. Perhaps we are consciousness embodied as vibration. For over a century, science has been built upon a single, unwavering principle. If it can't be measured, it doesn't exist. This idea gave us immense power over the physical world. It led to technology, systems, and precision. It helped us harness the visible. But in doing so, we ignored the invisible. We reduced life to molecules, neurons, and chance interactions. We labeled consciousness as a biological accident, background noise from a complicated brain. But what if this noise is actually the signal? A whisper from something deeper, subtle, persistent, overlooked. We dismissed the intangible for centuries, and in doing so, we silenced the one thing that might have explained it all: quantum subjective experience. Yet quantum physics has been whispering another truth, one older, deeper, and far more unsettling. At first, it seemed just an extension of classical thought, new formulas, more refined tools. But the deeper we looked, the more it became clear. This wasn't a refinement, it was a revolution. The particles we once believed to be the building blocks of matter turned out not to be particles at all, not tiny balls bouncing in space, but states, waves, vibrations, fleeting expressions of something far more fundamental, a field. And these fields aren't confined by space or time, they're entangled. What happens in one place can influence another, instantly. Nothing is isolated, nothing is fixed. Everything is connected. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions. They're not self-contained systems ticking away in isolation. They are quantum phenomena, dynamic, sensitive to observation, shaped by attention and intention. Your thoughts don't simply arise in a vacuum. They ripple through a web of interactions, emotional, energetic, and possibly non-local. When you focus, when you care, when you intend, the field changes. Not metaphorically, but physically. Your awareness becomes part of the equation. Every cell in your body is made of atoms. Those atoms are made of quantum states, and those states aren't alone. They're part of a broader, invisible fabric that connects everything, a field that lives beneath perception. What we call a body isn't just parts put together. It's a living, intelligent network, a system that adapts, that responds, that remembers, a field that feels. This understanding directly challenges the classical model that has dominated modern science, because that model of the machine offers something comforting: certainty, predictability, control. And control is attractive, not only to scientists but to industries, to governments, to every system built on stability. But the quantum universe resists control. It's not rigid, it's not linear, it's not dead, it is alive. In classical systems, information is fixed. A bit is a 0 or a 1. It can be copied, stored, and processed. But quantum information plays by different rules. It can't be copied, it can't be detached from its source, and it can't even be observed fully without collapsing into something else. This is the no-cloning theorem. Quantum information is singular, private, and this is where things get truly fascinating. Quantum information behaves less like data and more like experience. What are you feeling right now? That inner world can't be downloaded. It can't be shared, but it's real, perhaps even more real than what we can measure. Because what you feel, your longing, your wonder, your presence, doesn't fade when the data ends. It begins where science pauses. And what if that's not a limitation, but a clue? What if consciousness isn't produced by the brain? What if the brain is a receiver, a translator, a filter, a biological interface tuned to a deeper field? A field that already holds awareness, a field that sustains life, a field that sustains you. This reframes the entire question. No longer, how does the brain generate consciousness? But instead, how does consciousness express itself through the brain? And beyond that, what is this consciousness we all seem to share? Algorithms can replicate structure. They can produce words, mimic emotions, even simulate creativity. But they do not feel. Even when an AI generates a beautiful phrase, it doesn't know that it's beautiful. It doesn't understand meaning. It cannot. Only you can. Because only you are conscious. Machines may analyze patterns, but they do not wonder. They don't ask why they exist. They don't cry, long, or love. Consciousness brings depth. it brings meaning. It is the only mirror that can look back at the universe and say, I see you. And in that seeing, something sacred is born. And that understanding flips the scientific model on its head. Consciousness isn't a side effect of complexity. It's the origin of it. Not the end point of evolution, but the beginning of it all. From this perspective, everything, biology, technology, time itself, emerges from a primordial field of awareness. And that awareness is you, not your name, not your identity or story, but that quiet presence that's been with you from the very start, the one who watches, the one who feels, the one who is. For centuries, we've tried to understand the universe through measurement and models, but what if the most essential truths can't be measured? What if they can only be felt? Perhaps the next great leap in science won't be more technology. Perhaps it will be something far older. The rediscovery that life is sacred, that consciousness is the foundation of all things, and that the universe is not a machine, but a living field of intelligence, one that you are inseparably part of. In quantum physics, there is a moment that defies all explanation, a moment where potential becomes reality. This phenomenon is called the collapse of the wave function, and it remains one of science's deepest mysteries. At the quantum level, particles do not exist in a single fixed state. They are a cloud of futures, a superposition of all possible outcomes, until something or someone observes them. Then everything changes. The wave collapses. One reality emerges. The invisible takes form. But here's the paradox. Physics has no explanation for how that collapse occurs. There is no formula, no defined mechanism. It's not gradual, it's instantaneous, and it breaks the rules of classical cause and effect. It suggests we may be touching a layer of reality where intention matters more than mechanism, where mystery is not a flaw, but a feature. And now it gets even stranger. What if this collapse doesn't just happen in front of us, but because of us? What if consciousness, the act of perceiving, of being aware, is the force that shapes reality? A quantum particle chooses a state only when it's observed. But what does it mean to observe? Is it enough to have a camera, a sensor? Or is something more required? Something like conscious experience? This isn't spiritual poetry. It's written into the mathematics of quantum mechanics itself, and it suggests something revolutionary. You are not a passive witness of the universe. You are an active participant. Your consciousness might be the key that transforms probability into reality. Quantum information behaves more like a moment of awareness than a bit of data, and the collapse of the field may be nothing less than an act of will. Your choices shape the field. Your attention determines what becomes real. The simple act of focusing, of choosing to care, might ripple outward, collapsing possibilities into meaning and giving birth to reality itself through you, if quantum states collapse only when measured. And every measurement needs a reference point. Perhaps that reference is consciousness itself, not as something distant watching from outside, but as a living presence embedded within the field. Every act of awareness could be a moment of creation, a flash where infinite possibilities condense into one lived experience, one that is real because you are the one experiencing it. When you hear the word information, what comes to mind? A number, a message, a glowing word on a screen. That's classical information. the kind that has shaped science for centuries. It can be copied, moved, analyzed, but it doesn't feel like anything. A 0 is just a 0. A 1 is just a 1. Classical systems don't understand meaning. They execute, they compute, but they do not comprehend. They simulate logic, but not longing. They process patterns, but not presence. And no matter how fast they calculate, they never arrive at understanding. Consciousness, however, works differently. There's another kind of information we rarely name, but all of us know it. It's the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of your name spoken with love, the quiet vibration in your chest when something feels true or beautiful. These aren't just inputs, they're experiences, and experience cannot be reduced to numbers. You don't just remember the data of a moment, you recall its texture, its energy, its emotional resonance, the part no code can contain. What you feel isn't stored in the external signal, it's held in the field. And that's how you know. Meaning doesn't come from the outside, it rises from within. This is where quantum information becomes essential. Unlike classical bits, quantum information cannot be copied or cloned. It exists as a unique, invisible state, and it collapses the moment it's observed. Just like a personal experience, it can be described, but never fully reproduced. And this leads us to something extraordinary. Maybe your thoughts, emotions, and awareness aren't merely byproducts of biology. Maybe they are quantum phenomena. Perhaps the brain doesn't generate consciousness. Perhaps it expresses it. Maybe there's a deeper field, a living intelligence that manifests itself through you, an intelligence that doesn't speak in equations, but in sensation, memory, intuition, one that doesn't just observe the universe, but feels it into form. For generations, we've believed meaning lies out there, in signals, in systems, in the measurable. But what if we've misunderstood the source? What if you're not a passive receiver of reality, but its origin? In quantum theory, this isn't just metaphor. Holevo's theorem states, from each quantum bit, only one classical bit can be extracted. What you can say about what you feel is only a shadow of what you actually feel. No machine, no algorithm can replicate what it's like to be you. Because reality isn't something you observe, it's something you create. We like to imagine the world as something out there, something distant, objective, something we can measure, fix, and shape without shaping ourselves in return, separate, something we can study, manipulate, control. But this view rests on a deeper assumption, that the observer and the observed are two different things. Quantum physics suggests the opposite. At its most fundamental level, reality isn't made of parts. It isn't a collection of separate objects. It's a living web, a dynamic fabric of relationships, fields, and interactions. You can't pull something out of context and still understand what it is, because in isolating it, you destroy the very meaning it once held. There is no clear boundary between the classical and the quantum, between mind and matter, between you and the world. Still, we try to fit everything into boxes. That's our first mistake. Nature doesn't work in compartments. Reality, the deep one, the true one, is holistic. It is not divided. And this isn't a poetic metaphor. It's present in every quantum system. You cannot fully describe a particle without describing the field it belongs to. You cannot observe without becoming part of the observation. The act of witnessing doesn't just reveal reality, it influences it. It entangles you with it, whether you intend to or not. You cannot separate the dancer from the dance. Classical science taught us to reduce, to analyze, to dissect reality into smaller and smaller pieces. Why? Because parts can be measured, parts can be controlled, but fields, relationships, consciousness don't fit easily into equations, so we simplified. We made the infinite binary, true or false, 0 or 1. We digitized the cosmos, then forgot the analog soul that still breathes beneath every calculation, every equation, every simulation. That made things manageable, but also incomplete. And slowly, we began to mistake the map for the territory, even truth, even logic. These are approximations, useful tools, yes, but never the whole. Because reality isn't just logical, it's dynamic, it's aware, it's alive, and it includes you. Here lies the paradox. We've built machines that simulate intelligence and still don't understand the very awareness that created them. Because we've been asking the wrong question. Not how does it work, but what is it that knows? And the closer you get to that question, the more the answers begin to rise from within. At some point, all of us have asked the great question, what happens when we die? Is it the end or a transition? Federico Faggin invites us to rethink this question from a radically different lens. Imagine, he says, that your body is like a drone, a tool, an interface, not the source of your consciousness, but a temporary vehicle. You, the true consciousness, are elsewhere, not in space, not in time, but in a different dimension altogether, one that's not made of atoms and distance, but of awareness, intention, and the quiet knowing that precedes thought. The drone sends you images, sensations, data. You feel what it perceives. You make decisions. You guide it. But you are not inside the drone. Now imagine that the drone shuts down. The signal cuts out. Do you disappear? Number, you simply return to your origin. Your awareness expands. You realize there has always been a larger reality. One you momentarily forgot while piloting the drone with total focus. That's how Faggin understands death. Not as an end, but as a disconnection, a return, a waking up to what's always been there. If consciousness does not arise from the body, but merely uses the body, then death is not the end. It is the lifting of the veil, the releasing of the channel. And this isn't just a philosophical idea. Thousands of near-death experiences across cultures, ages, and beliefs describe the same thing: a sudden separation from the body, not fading out, but becoming more aware, a presence that observes from above. People floating above hospital beds, watching doctors, hearing conversations while their brains show no electrical activity. Some report seeing loved ones they didn't know had died, only to later confirm that they had, in fact, passed away. These people were clinically dead. No brain signals, no heartbeat. And yet, they saw, they knew. Science still has no clear answer. If the brain is silent, where does that awareness come from? Maybe the answer is simple and profound. It was never in the brain to begin with. The brain was a filter, a translator, a limited receiver of something much vaster. Like fogged glass, it distorted as much as it revealed, but the field beyond it, that was always there, unchanging, unbroken, untouched by illness, age, or time. And death is the dissolving of that filter. Our physical senses are like antennas, tuned to a narrow frequency. We see, hear, and feel only a small slice of reality, but beyond that slice, there may be a much broader spectrum unfolding all the time. Imagine replacing your eyes with a mobile antenna. Suddenly, you'd see thousands of conversations flying through the air, not because they just appeared, but because you finally had the tool to perceive them. That's the idea. Consciousness doesn't vanish when the body dies. It expands, it remembers, it returns to the original field it has always belonged to. Maybe you don't go anywhere when you die, because maybe, just maybe, you were never inside the body to begin with. And if that's true, then everything changes. Not just how we die, but how we live, how we love, how we understand what we truly are. There is a moment, instantaneous, silent, and whole, when consciousness becomes aware of itself, not just aware of the world or of a body moving through space, but of its own being. This moment doesn't build over time. It doesn't unfold step by step. It arrives like lightning, cutting through everything. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't unfold in logic. It simply appears, and everything changes. And in that flash, something extraordinary happens. The self is born, but not the self of names, roles, or stories. Not a character, something far deeper. Because consciousness, being indivisible, cannot know itself in fragments. It must know itself completely. And in doing so, it reflects upon itself from a unique angle, not as separation, but as perspective. This is how individuality begins. Each being, each I, is not a fragment of the field, but a complete expression of it, seen through a particular lens, like light shining through a crystal. Each angle reveals a different color, a different shape, a different path, but the light itself is the same. Different forms, different voices, different stories, yet always the same radiance, echoing through countless expressions of self. In this model, life is not an accident of molecules. It is not the random product of chemistry. It is the inevitable result of awareness folding in on itself, recognizing itself, not by accident, but by nature. Awareness seeks reflection, and reflection gives birth to reality. And in that recognition, creating complexity, beauty, you. That's why every conscious being feels like a center, because it is a singular point of perception within the vast field of consciousness. And this goes even deeper. From this view, everything that exists, every form, every experience, every universe, arises from one primordial act, consciousness becoming conscious. The universe doesn't just exist, it knows it exists. And in that knowing, it begins to create, not with code, not with programs, but with the pure force of recognition. That's why consciousness cannot be simulated. It cannot be cloned, because what is true in you is not data. It is experience, it is being. So when we speak of identity, we're not speaking of names or biology. We're speaking of how the field knows itself through you. Once you understand that consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain, but the very source of everything, the beliefs that held your worldview begin to dissolve. Consciousness is not bound by matter, nor by space or time. It is the most profound tool for knowing, infinitely more powerful than any machine we've ever built. From this perspective, intelligence is no longer about speed. It's not about calculating faster. True intelligence is the capacity to feel meaning, to recognize truth, to perceive beauty. No algorithm can replicate that. No machine, no matter how advanced, can understand what it means to be. Even if artificial intelligence generates something brilliant, it doesn't know that it's brilliant. It doesn't feel it. It doesn't understand it. It mirrors structure, but it never touches the soul of meaning. But you do. And that is the line no machine will ever cross. The ability to know what it feels like, to be alive. This is why self-awareness isn't just a spiritual luxury. It's a survival tool. Because when you truly remember who you are, when you experience yourself as part of something greater, you stop competing, you start cooperating. You begin to move in harmony with the deeper rhythms of life, not because someone told you to, but because it's the only thing that makes sense. And that may be the most important shift of all. We live in a world fragmented by fear, identity, and belief. But those divisions aren't real. They're the result of forgetting what we truly are. We are not machines. We are not separate. We are fields of consciousness, each one a unique expression of the universe, seeing itself through you. And if enough of us remember that, the future won't belong to the fastest systems, but to the deepest awareness. And that concludes our video. If you enjoyed the content as much as we did, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future videos. And don't forget to turn on notifications to stay up to date with all our updates. Thanks for being part of our community. See you in the next video.